The padlock on Unit 47 was cut and sitting in the gravel when I got there. My mother died in March. She'd had a storage unit on Route 9 for 20 years. A 10x20 in Section B at a place called Safe Harbor Storage, which is a ridiculous name for a cinder block shed next to a soy field. She paid for it automatically every month, and I found out about it when I got the auto-renewal notice in the stack of her mail I was forwarding. I drove out on a Saturday in mid-June with 2 cups of gas station coffee. The plan was to spend a morning going through whatever was in there, box up anything worth keeping, donate the rest. I had her laminated card with the gate code and the little orange key they give you for the padlock. I didn't know what I was expecting. Probably furniture and holiday decorations and photo albums. Ordinary grief. The drive out there takes 20 minutes and goes through flat farmland the whole way, and I had the windows down and I was doing fine. I pulled into Section B and started down the row toward 47. I got to the unit and stopped. The padlock was gone from the hasp. It was on the ground, cut clean through the shackle, sitting in the gravel to the right of the door. She always kept that unit locked. She'd told me once that someone at a different facility had gotten their unit broken into. A whole box of her mother's china just gone, and she'd never forgotten it. The laminated card with the gate code and the orange key had lived on her keychain for 2 decades. The door was not fully closed. There was a gap of maybe 2 inches. I stood there for a moment. I told myself, kids, vagrants, something random and explainable that had nothing to do with me. The facility manager's office was a half-mile back at the entrance, and I thought about going to get him. Instead, I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pushed the door the rest of the way open with my foot. The unit was mostly full. Furniture under tarps, stacked boxes, the kind of organized storage that a methodical woman builds up over decades. I let out a breath. Nothing looked obviously missing or disturbed. There was a tarp over what turned out to be my grandmother's love seat, and next to it, a tower of labeled boxes, kitchen, books, misc, and in the far back corner, against the left wall, a clear plastic bin of holiday ornaments. I walked to the center of the unit and turned slowly with the flashlight. Someone had been sleeping here. There was a bedroll behind the largest tower of boxes, invisible from the door. A dark green sleeping bag, rolled up but not stored, just placed like someone had left that morning planning to come back tonight. Next to it, a plastic grocery bag with 3 bottles of water and a sleeve of crackers. A pair of shoes, size 11 or 12 men's, set neatly side by side. And on top of the box, directly beside the bedroll, a single photograph, face up, not in a frame. It was a picture of my mother, not a copy I recognized, not a photo from any album I'd ever seen. She was younger in it, maybe late 30s, and she was standing in a parking lot I didn't recognize, next to a car I didn't recognize, looking slightly off to the side of whoever was taking the photo. Natural, not posed, like someone had caught her mid-moment. You know the way your brain tries to build a rational explanation before it lets you feel afraid. You know how it scrambles to find the version of this that makes sense. I was still holding my flashlight on that photograph when I heard gravel shifting in the row outside. Footsteps, unhurried, coming toward the unit. The kind of pace that belongs to someone who knows exactly where they're going. I didn't see who it was. I went out the back seam of the tarp covering the love seat, pushed through to the unit's rear wall, and stayed completely still. The footsteps stopped just outside the open door. Then they went quiet and didn't start up again. I called the police from inside that unit. They found no one. They took the bedroll, the shoes, the grocery bag into evidence. The photograph I took with me. I've been trying to identify the parking lot in the background for 3 weeks now. Last night I noticed there's a car reflected in the window behind my mother. Someone is sitting in the driver's seat, The reflection is small and distorted, but they're facing forward. They're facing the camera. The second night of the camping trip was when Marcus noticed the fire ring. We'd found the site off a logging road in the Shawnee National Forest. Not a maintained campground, just a clearing that showed up on the satellite view with what looked like tire tracks leading in. 4 of us. Me, Marcus, my girlfriend Danny, and her co-worker Paul, who'd been camping more than any of us and had done all the gear research. We drove in Friday afternoon, set up 2 tents, got a fire going. The site had been used before. There was an established fire ring made of stacked stones, blackened in the center, surrounded by dirt worn smooth. We cooked over it and stayed up late, and it was exactly what a camping trip is supposed to be. The second morning was warm and still. By afternoon we'd hiked a 5-mile loop and come back to the site, and Paul had napped and I'd read, and Danny and Marcus had walked down to a creek they'd spotted from the trail. A good day. No signal out there, which was the whole point. Marcus came back from the creek quiet. I didn't think much of it. He gets introspective outdoors. That night, while Paul and Danny were washing dishes at the camp table, Marcus showed me something on his phone. He'd taken pictures at the creek. In the third photo, in the trees on the far bank, there was a figure, standing very still. Dark clothing, hood up, hands at their sides. Marcus said he hadn't seen anyone when he took the photo. He'd only noticed it when he was scrolling through that evening. You know how it is when you're looking at a photo that wasn't supposed to have someone in it. You look for the explanation. A rock formation, a shadow, a tree at the right angle. I looked. It wasn't any of those things. We showed Paul. He looked at it for a long time and then said, "It's probably a hiker." Which was true. It was probably a hiker. We put more wood on the fire and stayed up until midnight. When we finally went to sleep, I told myself that Marcus had just missed someone on the far bank, and that was fine, and we were in a national forest with other people in it. At 2 a.m. I woke up to Danny shaking my arm. She was sitting up in the tent, completely still, not making a sound, just shaking my arm until I was awake. When I looked at her, she pointed toward the tent door. Someone was standing just outside it. The silhouette was visible through the tent fabric, person-shaped, close enough that I could see the outline of a shoulder, a bent elbow, just standing there, not moving. I don't know how long we watched that silhouette, long enough that I was certain it was real and not a shadow or the angle of a tree, long enough that I'd run through every version of "there's an innocent explanation" and come out the other side. Then it moved. Not away. It crouched down, slow, until it was low enough that the silhouette disappeared below the bottom of the tent fabric. Whatever was out there was now at ground level, right outside our tent door. I unzipped the door and shone my flashlight in every direction. Nothing. The fire had burned down to embers. The tree line was 30 yards off. The other tent was closed and dark. I walked the perimeter of the site and found nothing. In the morning, Paul found boot prints in the dirt at the far edge of the fire ring. Single set, facing the tent. We left 2 hours later. On the drive out, Marcus went quiet again. When we got to the highway, he finally said it. The fire ring, second morning. He'd walked past it on the way to the creek and noticed that the stones had been moved. The ring we'd cooked over the first night had its largest stones on the north side, making a natural windbreak. The second morning, those stones were on the south side. Someone had rearranged our fire ring while we slept. The last thing I expected to find at 3 a.m. on a Thursday was someone else's coffee. I work overnight security for a commercial office building downtown. 16 floors, 2 elevators, a lobby desk, and a patrol route that takes 40 minutes if you take it seriously. The building is empty by 8 most nights. I've been doing it for 11 months, and I know what empty sounds like. I know which vents hum on what floors, which elevators settle when the temperature drops, which stairwell door on the 4th floor doesn't quite close all the way because the frame is slightly warped. I do 3 full patrols a shift, the first at 10, the second at 1, the third at 4. Between patrols I'm at the lobby desk, watching the feeds from 14 cameras on a split screen. The first patrol passed without anything worth noting. The second patrol, I got to the 7th floor break room on my standard check and stopped in the doorway. There was a paper coffee cup on the counter next to the machine. Not one of the building's cups. Those are white with the management company logo. This was from a coffee shop, a brown sleeve on it, plastic lid. Still had steam. I don't have a coffee machine up there. I brew my own downstairs. No one had badged in through the lobby that night. I can see the entry log from my desk. The freight entrance in the basement requires a code and a separate key card, both logged. I stood there and watched the steam rise off that cup. The building has a service contractor. HVAC guys come in twice a month, always scheduled, always on the log. It did a run 2 weeks ago, 3 people, in and out by 10 p.m. No contractors were scheduled for last Thursday. I picked up my radio and called dispatch, told them what I had. They told me to lock down my desk and wait for backup. I went back to the lobby, sat at my desk, and pulled up all 14 camera feeds. Floors 1 through 6. Nothing. Lobby, nothing. Loading dock, nothing. Floor 7, break room, cup still there. If you've ever sat alone in a building watching 14 cameras, knowing something is wrong on one of those floors, and trying to figure out which feed to watch, I want to hear about it in the comments, because you know exactly what I felt when I got to the floor 12 feed, and it was black. Not the blue static of a dead camera, just black, like something was covering the lens. I called dispatch again. They sent a unit. While I was waiting, the feed came back. Floor 12 was an open office floor. Cubicles, conference rooms along the windows, a glass-walled server room in the center. When the feed came back on, it was empty. Chairs pushed in, lights off. Exactly as it should be, except the door to the server room was open. It had a badge reader. Nobody on my log had badged through it. The police unit walked the building, found the server room door open, nothing inside disturbed. Found the coffee cup on 7. Found nothing else, no one, no point of entry they could identify. They filed a report and left at 4:20 a.m. I sat back down at my desk and finished my shift. At 6 a.m., my relief came in. I told him what happened. He nodded, said he'd had something similar 6 months ago before I started in the parking structure attached to the building. Never figured out how someone had gotten in. I went home and slept and came back Thursday night. The coffee cup was still in the 7th floor break room, right where I'd left it. I'd told no one to remove it and no one had. It was cold now, obviously, but when I picked it up to throw it away, I noticed the lid had been pressed back down and resealed. When I'd left it, the lid was loose. I know because I'd lifted it to check if it was real coffee. Someone had been back.